Child, with his hair right. Hey, y'all. Happy Friday. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Friday. Happy Friday. Hey, hey, hey. Happy Friday. It is good to see everybody as you come in. Y'all know what I like you to do. Let me know where you're tuning in from. It's good to see everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. It's time for a relationship Friday, another relationship Friday. I'm so excited to have you all here. As y'all come in, let us know where you're tuning in from. We want to shout you out. So, hello, hello. We are streaming. Where are we streaming to? We are Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and we were going to try to go to Instagram, but Instagram, maybe the next time we'll get y'all. So, happy Friday. Happy Friday. It's good to see everybody as you come in. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, subscribe to our not LinkedIn, YouTube. Subscribe to our link. I keep saying LinkedIn, but it's not LinkedIn, it's YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, happy Relationship Friday. Are y'all ready to talk? Are y'all ready to talk? I hope so. We are talking about what questions you need to ask or to have conversations about before you say yes. So, we're going to talk about that. I'm Rachel. For those of you all who do not know, I'm Rachel Hunter, your licensed clinical social worker with RDH Counseling and Consulting, where we help you become your healthiest self. And today's Relationship Friday is hosted by RDH Counseling and Consulting. So listen, have you invited somebody to come in? Have you shared this? If not, go ahead and share it. For those of y'all who have shared it, thank you. Thank you very, very much. But as you come in, let us know where you are tuning in from. We want to shout you out. You know, we love to shout you out. If this is your first time tuning in with us, I want you to comment newbie. If this is your first time tuning in with us. If you've been with us before, just let us know. Say, oh, head. If you have been with us before, go ahead and let us know and say, oh, head. Hey, Chris. Happy Friday. Chris, where you're tuning in from, let us know where y'all are tuning in from. Go ahead and invite your friends. We're going to have listen, our Relationship Fridays be lit, as they say. Let me say it more professionally. On Fridays, we have our Relationship Fridays, and we always have a very enjoyable time. So make sure that you invite your friends. Listen, if you are getting ready to get engaged, if you're thinking about getting engaged, you need to be here. If you have friends or family members that are dating and they're thinking about getting engaged, invite them because they need to be here. Hey, Shayna, old head in the building. Listen, I got my old head crew. Thank y'all for sharing this. For those of y'all who are watching us on a watch party, hello and welcome. If you are joining us via LinkedIn, hello and welcome. And if you are watching us on YouTube, hey, YouTube.
I have shared it. Thank you.
So let us know where you're tuning in from. So listen, we are talking about what it means and how we need to have conversations before we get married, right? So a lot of the couples that I work with have not had these conversations, and it causes stress, it causes issues, major issues for them, right? So there are specific conversations that we need to be having, people, before we even say I do. Before we even get engaged, you need to be having some of these conversations. And so sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know what we should be asking. So that's the purpose of tonight's Relationship Friday, is really to dig into some of these conversations. I said it's the top 4, but keep in mind there are a lot more questions you need to be having. But I wanted to talk about these top 4 because these are the issues that come up most when I'm doing the relationship therapy and counseling. This is what comes up. When I'm doing my coaching sessions, this is what's coming up. These are the topics, these are the areas that people are struggling in. So you need to have these conversations beforehand. Suffolk is in the building. Shana, where are you joining us from? So go ahead, share this. Thank you all for sharing it. Hey, Kelvin, it's good to see you. So y'all know I do polls. So I want to kind of hear from you all. What do you think are some of the top questions you need to ask? And so whether it's, I wish I had asked these questions before I got engaged or before I got married, or just whatever you think would be necessary to ask. Like, what kind of conversations should you be should you be having before you get married? Portsmouth is in the building. P-Town is in the building. So go ahead and throw in the comments. Before we hop in, I want to hear what people are thinking, right? Like, what are some questions or some conversations you wished you had before you got married? So let's hear about that. Hello and welcome. We have Norfolk is in the building. Okay. What did they say? Naughty by Norfolk. I don't know if they still say that. That is so corny. But welcome, Norfolk. So again, the poll is, what are you thinking, right? What are some of the top questions that you should be asking, need to ask before you get engaged or married? Like, what would you need to know about your spouse before you pop that question to them? So that's the poll. Go ahead, throw it in the comment. I want to hear and see what y'all are saying. And then we're going to hop into it because listen, so a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the couples that come in, they are feeling frustrated. They are upset. Some of them kind of feel like they've been bamboozled, right? Because they feel like they thought they knew their partner. And this is what they say. They weren't like this, but then when we got married, they changed. And the reality is, no, they did not change. They were the same person. You just didn't ask the right questions, right? So we're going to definitely talk more about that. But I want to hear from y'all. What do you think are the top questions that you should be asking or that people should be talking about to know more about their partner? Like, what would be the areas that you would want to know? And if you got married, maybe you're divorced now, and you're like, dang, I wish I would have asked this question, or I wish we would have talked about this. That's what I want to know. So that's the poll that is going on now. For those of y'all who are just tuning in, hello, welcome. We are very happy to have you here. If you have not shared this, go ahead and share. Let me share, because I'm telling y'all to share. Let me make sure that I'm sharing as well. And invite, right? So those people that are, hey, Diane, where are you tuning in from? For those of you all who are just tuning in, let us know where you are tuning in from. We want to shout you out, but also we want to talk about these questions. What are the questions we need to be having before we even say I do, right? Like, we like, yes, I love him. Oh, he loves me. But have you asked some of these questions? Hey, Diane is joining us from Suffolk. Suffolk is in the building. I think that's the second person from Suffolk. So, hey, Diane, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. If you know people that are married, engaged, dating, and listen, even if you are married and you have not had these conversations, it's never too late to ask these questions. And I'm going to talk to you about how to do that, because sometimes it can be challenging. Like, wait, how do I ask this? So I am going to talk to you about how to do that. So I have just shared. If you haven't shared, go ahead and share, please. Thank you. Make sure y'all are liking the page, RDH Counseling and Consulting. share, like, follow the page. Hey, Janelle. Good evening, Janelle. Where are you tuning in from? All right. So I don't see any. Okay. All right. So Janelle says, okay. Janelle says, I'm asking everything and I'm doing a background screening too. Listen, okay, that's important. It's important to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes we don't do so. Y'all know I do real estate investment, right? And a part of what we do as real estate investors, we have what's called due diligence. And when it comes to relationships, a lot of times we are not doing our due diligence. We are not asking the questions. So we need to definitely do that. All right. So one of the questions is, what are your expectations as far as roles and responsibilities in the household, the chores, etc.? Listen, I can't see your face. I don't know who that is, but you have hit it on the head. This is definitely a question. This is a conversation that you need to be asking, right? Like, wait a minute now, what does it mean for you to be, for if I'm the wife, what do you expect from me, right? As the husband, what do I expect from you? Now, that might sound real basic, but I want you to know it is not. You will be so surprised. So, I'm going to give y'all homework. For those of y'all that have worked with me, you know I give homework. But you would be so surprised to know that people have different ideas and expectations of about what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a wife, and it comes from your background. What you saw role modeled oftentimes is what you're going to emulate, right? So if your mom or if the ladies in your family were responsible for cooking, cleaning, paying the bills, they managed the finances, and they kind of ran the household, that may be what you as a female, as a woman, as a wife, think that that's what you're expected to do. But if your partner comes from a household where the men handle the finances, right? That's something you need to discuss. Who is doing what? Chris said one of the questions that he asked is, are you healed from your past relationships as well as any hurt that you may have experienced in your childhood? Listen, let's talk. Let's talk about that, because those are questions you want to ask about. I need to know that, right? Because it's not to say necessarily that, okay, I'm going to discount you because, you've been through some things, but it is important to recognize where your partner is. That is so important. Hey, Renaya, welcome. Renaya, where are you joining us from? We want to shout you out. We are talking, for those of y'all who are just joining, share this. We're talking about the questions you need to ask before you say I do. Before you even get engaged, you need to know where your partner's mindset is, right? Chris was saying that we need to know what's your trauma. Do you have trauma? Are you still dealing with unresolved hurt, pain, and wounding? Let me tell you why that's important. Okay, let's kind of talk about that. Hey, Lloyd, welcome. Lloyd, where are you tuning in from? Let me tell you why it's important to know where your partner is with their trauma. And I was talking to somebody today. Renaya is joining us from Port P-Town is in the house. And listen, I'm saying Renaya, but I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. If not, please forgive me. So Janelle said, are you healed and are you whole? That part, two totally separate and distinct things. So I need to know, hey, Frank. Frank is in the building. Frank, where are you joining us from? Thank y'all for sharing this. Y'all are doing awesome. So listen, when we're talking about being healed, being whole, that plays out, that comes out in your relationship. So if you are broken, if you have experienced trauma in the past and you have not healed from it, it's going to come out, right? Whether it is impacting how you're looking at your current partner, right? Because if you're wounded, if you have been hurt before and you haven't healed, then sometimes we begin to believe that we're less than. We also begin to self-sabotage in our relationships, right? And so when we are self-sabotaging, that could be showing up as us not being emotionally available in the relationship, right? That could show up as us constantly picking fights. That can show us up for us as us not being fully committed in the relationship. So I need to know, yeah, have you dealt with your mother wounds, right? Have you dealt with your father wounds? And if not, are you willing to at least go and get help? Right. So all of those things are important. I saw another question in here. Are you dating with the intention of marriage? Now that's important, right? Because if I'm going into a relationship, or if you're going into the relationship and you have one idea about what this thing is supposed to turn out, and the other person is like, yeah, I'm just here, I'm just trying to have fun. Yeah, no, I don't want to waste my time, right? So those type of questions are definitely important. I love this. Y'all are throwing out some really good ones. Shayna said, would you tell me if you thought about cheating? Now listen, Shayna, you opening up a can of worms, because this is a conversation, right? When we're talking about cheating, when we're talking about infidelity, it is important to have those conversations, especially if infidelity has been an issue in the past. There needs to be boundaries, there needs to be safeguards in place. And so having those kind of conversations where it's like, listen, you cheated in the past, or maybe you were cheated on in the past. How do you manage your thoughts, right? I want to put this out here that we all have eyes. Like, just because you get married, just because you get into a relationship, does not mean that your eyes go away, that you stop being attracted to other people. So I need us to all recognize and realize that that's number one. Like, that's not going anywhere. Now, just because you have eyes and you see and you know what you're attracted to, because a lot of us have a type, right? So just because big, tall, dark chocolate, big, thick, muscular, whatever walks past and I'm attracted to that person, that doesn't mean that I have to cheat. But I am going to be very upfront and honest with my partner. Yeah, that's my type right there. Or yeah, you know what you look like. You're my type. You okay. But this whole idea of I'm having thoughts about cheating, it really is more of I need to do some inner work to see why I am thinking about cheating. And so being able to involve your partner in that conversation, whether it's I don't feel fulfilled in this relationship, I don't feel like we're on the same page in this relationship, right? Because this whole thought about cheating, it's less about I want to go out and cheat and more about something that's happening, something internal that's happening, and whether it's there's a part of me that's broken or wounded. I don't want to say broken, but there's a wounded part of you that is insecure. And so cheating or getting attention from others is something that you're seeking because you don't feel affirmed, and that's the way that you get affirmation, right? So it's less about I'm thinking about cheating and more about let's address what's really going on. And so this goes back to what Janelle and what Chris was saying earlier, right? About are you healthy? Are you whole? Are you healed? So that's important. Any other questions that y'all have had or wish you had asked before you got married or before you got engaged? These are really good. So y'all throw that in here. Don't forget to share this, like this, invite others. So let's hop into it. So y'all hit on some really important ones. These are in no particular order, what I'm about to address. So, but we're gonna hop into it. So Janelle said, so this is for people who are Christians, right? So having this conversation, right? Are you submitted to God and Holy Spirit? And when was the last time you asked Holy Spirit to reveal what's in your bloodline? So Janelle is bringing up these whole generational curses. And so in psychology and social work, we look at what's called the Enneagram. And in that Enneagram, it really helps you to see what's in your family, right? So do the men in your family cheat? Is that something that people do? Is there divorce? Do people not stay married, right? So those conversations are important to have and for you to recognize about your partner. So when we're dating, let's kind of back up just a little bit because I want to make sure we're clear about what we should be doing when we're dating, right? So when we're dating, it really is not us just, oh, let me just go out to eat. Let me just have a good time. No, you need to be dating intentionally, right? And a part of dating is information gathering. I forget who it was. I said they do a background check, right? But we're doing an assessment, right? We are gathering information. And a part of the information we want to know is if we were to get married, what would it be like married to this person? What are their values? What are their thoughts? How do they feel about certain things? If they are connected to God, are they submitted to God? Because what we're talking about is there are a lot of times that people maybe have thoughts, but they're not going to do it because they are more concerned about, am I pleasing my Heavenly Father, right? And so that keeps people, if they're submitted, it stops them from doing some of these crazy things. So Renaya said, it is important to tell a counselor. It is important to tell a counselor about a relationship. Are you asking, or is that your thoughts about it? Tell me, Renaya, tell me a little bit more about that, right? Are you saying that this is something that should be talked about, or are you asking, does it have to be? So just let me know about that. But yeah, we need to be gathering some information, and some of the information that we're gathering, I'm going to go into it. The first one that I want to talk about, and again, these are not in any particular order, finances. So I noticed that nobody mentioned finances, but honey, when you look at statistics and research, finances can make or break a relationship. Okay, Renaya, so you're asking, is it important to tell a counselor about a relationship? Okay, good question. It depends. I'm going to speak from the role of a therapist. I'm not a counselor. There is a difference, right? So as a licensed clinical social worker and a therapist, relationships can be areas of stressors. And so if a part of what we do as therapists is we want to figure out what you have going on and where the areas in your life are that are causing you stress. What about those areas that are causing you stress, and help you kind of grow, heal, and move through it. So if the relationship is an area of stress, yeah, well, I want to know. I want to know about that. So it just depends. If everything is going good in the relationship and there's no stress, okay. But if you just kind of run it past, hey, I've met somebody. These are the things that I really like. This, your therapist should be somebody that you can trust, and it's a safe space. So yeah, I have people talk to me all the time. I am a relationship coach, so people talk all the time about their relationship. So you certainly can. Yep. Yes, the finances. Okay, the finances. So there's a couple of things. When we talk about finances, y'all go ahead and throw it in the chat. What comes up for you when you think about finances? What comes up for you? Like, what would you want to know about your partner? Now, I'm just going to lay some things out there, but I want to hear from y'all. So when it comes to finances, there are a couple of things that you need to know about with your partner. One of the biggest things you want to know is what their relationship is like with money. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but do you realize that we have relationship with our finances? And it's either a healthy relationship towards an unhealthy relationship. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So a lot of times we are not taught how to manage our money. We're not taught how to manage our budget, how to even do a budget. We are not taught that, right? And so sometimes it is very challenging, like this person is saying, to hold on to a dollar. For some people, you've seen it role model where you get money and you spend it. Like that's what you do, right? That may be what was role model for you. But think about it from a different perspective. If you're coming from a different household and what you saw role model was we sit down, we go over a budget, we decide where our money is going to go, how much we're going to put into savings, how much we are going to set aside for for bills or to pay things off or maybe a vacation. If that's where you come from, imagine getting married to someone who is like, yeah, if I got money, I got it. If I don't, whatever. You know how much stress that's going to be. So the finances, it is important to ask those questions. And I'll tell you a couple of questions that you can ask because it's like, well, dang, how can I ask them about the finances? Yes, Chris, how are they with money? So the finance piece, there's a couple of ways that you are going to assess how they are with their money. You'll be able to figure out, like Janelle said, if they're disciplined or not, if they do a budget, how much debt do they have. There's a couple of ways that you can figure that you will be able to get this information. The first thing is I want you to watch. I want you to watch and listen. What are they saying about money? What is their mindset about money? Do they say things like, man, I can never keep a dollar. It's more, what do they say? More month than money. It's hard to get money, right? I got, so listening to the languaging that they're using connected to finances. If you hear them saying, y'all hear me say this all the time because it was told to me, if I got money, I got it. If I don't, I don't. As an adult, you can't live like that. I guess you can. Some people do. Those are things you want to be listening for. When we're dating, I need to meet your family because I need to see where your mindset about money comes from. So I will be able to I was going to say easily, but having these conversations, watching, right? Are they always talking about struggling when it comes to finances, right? So that's important to kind of assess. The other thing you want to look at is with their family, what are they living like? What is their conversation about when it comes to money? Do you hear them talking about things like a budget or right now, that's not in the budget, or hey, I'm planning for retirement, right? Are they thinking about retirement? Questions you can ask. Do you have a 401k? I'm laughing, but listen, do you have insurance? Do you have life insurance? My face is balled up, but do you have life insurance? Do you have 401k? Do you have a retirement? Do you have a savings account? You don't necessarily need to know what's in their savings account, but do you have a bank? Do you have a banking account? I know it sounds real basic. These are the questions we need to ask. And then, what's your credit score? Now, y'all hear me talk about credit all the time. And there are times where credit can get messed up based on a couple of different things, right? It's not always that you're not paying your bills, right? So there are times where things happen, you get sick, you lose a job, and you get behind with your bills. Or you might have maybe your debt to income ratio might be a little bit high. So there's some reasons why your credit can be messed up. But what is your credit score and why is it that? If you ask that question, they don't know what their credit score is, honey, run. No. But listen, these are things you need to know, and then you can make an informed decision about that. So let me pull up some of these comments. So Shayna said, if we're doing everything 50-50, then we put in 50-50 financially. But if you aren't helping 50-50 with the cooking, the cleaning, the helping equally with the children, she said, don't expect me to contribute 50% of the finances. Listen, those are things you need to discuss, right? What's the expectation? especially if one person is making more than the other person. What is the expectation going to be? So those are things that you want to talk about. You want to ask, hey, all right, you make more money than I do. How are we going to do the bills? What are your thoughts about that? Have you ever done a budget? Do you know how to do a budget? So those are questions you want to ask, you want to talk about, and get assistance with. So before you get engaged, you want to sit down, have these questions, and then if you see that, hey, we're kind of struggling in this area, get some help. There are coaches, there are financial coaches that can help you and your partner kind of work this thing out. One of the biggest stressors that I hear when it comes to finances is you have one person spending and the other person is a saver. And the person that's a saver is pissed because they're like, listen, we got goals, we have things, and they are not abiding by the goals. They're just out here spending, and I feel frustrated and upset. The spender, on the other hand, is like, yo, this person is a tightwad. They never want to have fun. We always have to just budget. And it's no fun, right? So that causes stress in the relationships. And so when that happens, it's good to kind of get a neutral third party to come in there and help you to sit down, talk about what your budgeting goals are, your financial goals are. And then a therapist can help each person understand why you are the way you are. So for these people that are out here just spending, sometimes it's connected to a wounding. You are using that as a way to emotionally cope with stress or anxiety, right? So those are questions you want to have. So the finances, that's important. And it is you sitting down and having that conversation, but also be watching. Okay. All right. That's number one. And again, it's not in any kind of order. But number one, you definitely want to have that conversation about what that money do. What are the finances looking like? Okay. The second one, and this is the one that I enjoy having with my couples and helping them figure this part out. Sex. Now let's just talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about it. When it comes to sex, what are some conversations or questions that you might want to know or have with your partner? And again, these aren't in any order, but these are definitely top questions that you need to have. Like, you got married and you didn't have these questions. Like, that's how important having these questions answered, discussed, processed is sex. Welcome for those of y'all who are just tuning in. We're talking about asking about sex with your partner. Invite, share this, because people need to talk about this. Now, someone mentioned earlier about God and Christianity. I want to encourage those of y'all who are Christians to have these conversations. A lot of times, you're not having these conversations, and then you get married and you like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought. This is not what I signed up for. So you need to have these conversations. Now, when it comes to sex, y'all, what questions do you think you should be asking when it comes to sex? I want to hear what y'all have to say. Y'all know I'm going to tune in and chime in on it, but I just want to see, and again, there's no right or wrong, but I want to hear from you all when it comes to sex. When should you have these conversations? What should you be asking? What do you think? What are y'all thinking when it comes to sex? What should you be asking? When should you be asking it? For those of y'all who are engaged, or you know people who are engaged or are dating, share this with them, especially if they're about to get married. Share this. If you are married and you haven't had some of these conversations, and if listen, I've been doing therapy for a while now, and people who are married have not had some of these conversations. So when it comes to sex, what questions are y'all thinking you should ask? All right. So you're hitting it right on the head. What's off limits? How often are we going to be having sex? Listen, I want to start right there. Let's start with that first one. What's off limits? I need to know what your comfort level is. I need to know. You all need to know what your partner's comfort level is. And you need to know this before the ring is bought. Because if your comfort level is a lot higher than your partner's, I'm going to strongly recommend that you do not get married to that person. Now, that's not to say that your partner, if they're open, if they're willing to try things, okay. But if you already know because you've had this conversation, which is why you need to have these conversations, if you already know that your partner is not comfortable doing anything outside of missionary, and you like to be choked, you already know you all are not sexually compatible. It doesn't mean that the person is a bad person at all. It just means that we're not sexually compatible, and sex is a big part of marriage. If you are not able to connect with your partner on a sexual level, honey, that relationship, it creates open doors, because if your sexual needs are not being met, what's going on? So if your sexual needs aren't being met, then that's going to lead to frustration. That's going to lead to stress, which is going to impact how you communicate, which is going to impact how you engage with each other. And if we're not communicating, if we're not connecting, this marriage is not going to last. It is a partnership. And if we ain't together on that page, honey, it causes a lot of stress. So what's off limits, how often we're going to have sex, that is important. Like so this ties into medical part, right? So I'm going to bring the medical piece of things into this. There are some people who, as they get older, now this is not for everybody. There's a couple of things. So let me say this. If you're thinking about getting married, if you already are married, if you're dating, if you are single, you need to be getting healthy, meaning you need to be eating as healthy as possible. You need to be working out. You need to do that because overall for your health, right? But if you're thinking about getting married, and let's say if you want children, then there are things that you need to do now to make sure that you are able to have children and it not be damaging to you, to your body, or put your child at risk, right? The other thing, when it comes to sex, like, yeah, I need you not to be out of breath in a minute. Like, what is going on, right? Because, and I'm laughing I'm laughing a little bit, but I want you to think about what sex entails. Sex is a workout. And so in order for sex to be enjoyable, stamina is important, right? And so if you're not in shape, it's going to be hard to get up and do some of these tricks. And I'm just saying, right? If you want to keep the spice going in your relationship, it is up to you to make sure that you are just as healthy as possible. So this is why being healthy is important, because that's going to play a role in whether you're tired, right? Especially as you get older, your body does some stuff. Now, not my body, because I'm going to be trying to speak life. So not our body, just for the other people that watch the replays, right? But the frequency of it. So as you get older, libido changes happen. The desire for sex can be impacted. And so if you can be as healthy as possible, it helps increase or maintain your sex drive, which means then your partner can be satisfied sexually. So how often we're going to have it, it's important, because some people are like, listen, give it to me once a month, I'm good, or I really don't even need to have it. And the other partner is like, wait a minute now, yeah, all day, every day, I'm gonna need to have this. Well, can y'all see how that causes a big difference, right? So having those conversations, right? Being upfront. This is not the time to be shy. Upfront. Listen, I enjoy sex, or I have a high sex drive, and I'm looking to have sex at least daily. You need to be upfront with that. I enjoy using toys. I like getting tied up. I like getting smacked. If that is your thing, you need to express it without fear of judgment. You need to be putting that out there, because what's not fair is to not express that. And your partner thinks that you are just, whatever they think. And then you get married. And then now you're like, all right, put this on. And they're like, wait a minute, we didn't talk about dressing up. I don't want to get tied up. I don't want you to choke me, because you didn't have the conversation. So those conversations are important. And I'm laughing a little bit, but people have all different types of appetites, and you need to know what your partner's appetite is like. Okay. You also want to be having questions about STDs. Have you ever had an STD? Do you currently have an STI? Sexually transmitted infection, disease, like where are we with things? And guess what? Y'all both need to be swapping those records. Did you get tested? Let me see your test results. We're going to swap. What's your credit score? We're going to swap. Like, those are conversations that you need to have, and they need to be very direct. Now, when you're having the sex conversation, I always encourage people to make it light. It doesn't have to be scary, and it can be done in a very enjoyable way. It really should be, right? Sex, God created sex, and he intended it to be delicious. And that's how the conversation around it can be. Now, if you were raised in church, there is a high likelihood that you might have a misconception about sex. You might think it's dirty. If something happened to you sexually, and I forget who it was that mentioned trauma and healing, right? That is a very real thing. Have you been sexually assaulted or traumatized? And if so, it can play a role in how you view sex and what you're comfortable with. And so you need to get therapy, but you also do need to have conversations, because it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get to enjoy sex. It just means that your partner needs to know, hey, this happened to me and I'm working through it, right? I work with victims of sexual assault. And so sometimes there are smells, there are, if you touch in a certain place or in a certain way, it can re-trigger, right? So if you are married already and you realize that, right, like sex is not enjoyable for you because of things that have happened. And sometimes it impacts you in such a way that it hurts, right? So those are the medical kind of things that we've talked about that need to be addressed. But it is important for you to share with your partner where you are and to have these conversations. So does that make sense, y'all? Does that make sense? And so it is important to be healed, to do the work, and to manage that, to address that. So the sex part is important. Okay. The third one is children. And again, this isn't going in any kind of order. I just made, I got a list, and this is from the clients that I work with, the families, the couples that I've worked with. Woo, child, the stuff that comes up, right? So these are the top things that I hear and I work with people about. And you would be surprised when it comes to children. But people don't have these conversations. And what that looks like is, let me go back real quick to the sex thing. I mentioned that you can have these sex conversations in a way where it's not scary. There are games that you can play, and I'll post a little bit later on some. I'm looking now to see if I have. So there are games that you can play that have questions, right? About what you enjoy, what you don't. And that way you can kind of play it like a game, like, okay, tell me what you enjoy. Tell me what you don't like. What's a turn on? What's a turn off for you, right? So you can kind of do it that way. And they have games. One of the games that they have is called Skin Deep. The Skin Deep. They need to pay me because I just gave that away. But they have some, and on in a couple of weeks, we're going to actually have couples on, and we'll use some of those questions and kind of go through them so y'all can see what it looks like. It's fun. I do it with my couples all the time to help them learn more about their partner, what they like and don't like. But those are conversations that you need to have. Okay. So, children, basic questions. Basic. Do you want kids? Like, start there. Do you want children? Yes. Yes, I do. Okay, how many? 3. Wait a minute. We didn't talk about it, right? So you need to be having those questions. Find out if your partner wants children. And if they want children, how many children? How soon are they looking to have children? Now, if your partner says, I do not want to have children, that's what it is. I see all the time where people, and sometimes ladies, we are guilty of thinking we can change a man's mind. But if the man said, no, I do not want children, then, and you really want children, that's not who you need to be with. Like, unless he's making it very clear, I do not want children. It is unfair to you to go into the marriage wanting children, because you're going to resent him for not wanting children. And he's going to resent you if you keep bringing it up. When he said, I already told you, I told you from the get-go, I didn't want kids. And I see that all the time. So having those questions, do you want children? Yes or no? If so, how many? How soon we're wanting to have them? The discipline. Listen, let's talk about this discipline part, right? Because what you're not going to do. Let's talk about discipline. That is excellent. These are things that people are not talking about and comes up. Now, I'm going to come at it from different angles. So when we're talking about discipline, you really want to have that conversation. If you are bringing children into a marriage, right? So let's say you already have children, and you're going to connect with somebody who doesn't have children. Or let's say even if they do have children, we need to have that conversation. What does discipline look like? What are our beliefs about discipline? I work with people who feel like, you better not put your hands on me or on my children. Let's get that straight. What you're not doing is putting, okay, all right, long as that's clear. All right. But some people are very adamant that I don't do spankings. I don't believe in spankings. And that needs to be communicated very early on. There should be no misconceptions about what discipline is, right? So you cannot assume that they feel the same way that you do about discipline. So what does discipline consist of? Is it spanking or not? Do they use other types of disciplinary methods? You have some people who are, timeout, rewards and sanctions, taking things away. Nothing wrong with that at all. Y'all know me, I will pop the mess. I will pop the mess out you. No. But you need to know what your partner believes, feels, thinks about when it comes to discipline. How do they feel about it? And then who's going to do the disciplining? That needs to be addressed. That needs to be discussed. And your ideas and your thoughts about that, right? Especially if you have children. Are you okay with your partner disciplining your children? Like, are you okay with a man putting his hands? Like, if spanking is, all right, we're going to do the spanking. How do you feel about that? That needs to be addressed. That's a touchy situation. And I can see some of y'all already like, I wish a brother would. or even for some of the men, no, that's my child. I'm going to discipline them, right? So having those conversations. For the ladies that have children, if you have sons, what does that look like? How is that going to work? Is it okay for your husband to correct your son? You need to have those conversations. Men, if you're talking to the ladies and she is like, no, I got this, don't say nothing to my son, that you need to hear. You need to hear, and you need to know what that's going to be like. Because when it comes to a marriage and a household, the two of y'all have to be on the same page. You have to be. The children will run amok and they will take advantage if they see there's any dissension in leadership. So you have to be on the same page when it comes to the discipline, when it comes to, do we even want to have children? How are we going to raise our children? And I know that sounds real weird, but I want you to think about that, right? So when you picture raising children, how do you picture them growing up? What do you think is important? What values do you have? What goals do you have for your children? So I'm going to give y'all homework. I want y'all to think about those things, right? When it comes to children, like, what are your goals? Now, if I have kids, if I get married, and if I have children, I want to have two sets of children. Two is good because they can play with each other, right? But that would be a conversation I would need to have. Now, these two children, now y'all know I got it all pictured out. They're probably going to be twins, so just one birth and we're done. Right? But they're going to be twins. I'm going to get them, I want them to be multilingual. So I want them to know how to speak and read and write in different languages. I'm athletic. For those of y'all that know me, track star, y'all already know. I want them to play sports, but we'll see kind of how they're going to do well, whatever they do, right? But what are you valuing? What are your goals? How do you envision raising your children? Those conversations. So when you're going out to eat with your partner and you're dating, these are the conversations you can have. You don't have to make it all tight. What you want for your kids? No, listen. So you want kids? You do. How many? Oh my goodness. Okay. So when you think about having kids, like, how do you envision them? Well, yeah, I want a boy. He probably can play sports. So you're listening, right? You're asking those questions and you're listening to the responses. And then you give your response. And if you hear that y'all are on two different levels, then don't put yourself in that situation, right? So those are things you want to kind of think about. I'll throw one last one in there. We did not get to go over all of the questions, so we will come back next week and pick it up. But I want to, what questions do you all have? Now I want y'all to ask your questions. What questions might you have, especially about how to have some of these conversations? What other conversations you should have? Like, now's the time. You got a real live therapist that you do not have to pay for. Now's the time to ask you a question. Now is the time to ask you a question. So what questions do you have about asking these questions? Or relationship? It's Relationship Friday, so y'all have the opportunity to talk to a real live relationship coach. I'm also a therapist, y'all know that. Ask your questions. What questions do you have? And if you want to come live and ask your question, you can do so. Click on the link. It's in the comments. But what questions do you have about any of what we talked about? Whether it's finances, whether it's sex, whether it's children, what questions do you have? Even about the medical, what questions do you have? The link is in the comment. If you want to come on live, you don't have to. You can ask your question in the comment. But what questions do y'all have? And what are your thoughts, right? When you're thinking about asking about sex, what they like, what they don't like, how often they want to have it. Is that something that you thought to ask? When did you ask that question? Did you wait until you were married and kind of see where they were, right? Because you didn't want to bring it up. And you could be honest. Or did you have that conversation at the beginning? Like, listen, I'm just putting it all out there. This is what I like. I expect it. And what was the response, right? When you put out what you wanted, was your partner open to talking about it or no? because sometimes those conversations can be challenging, can be scary for some people, but you need to have it. You need to have those conversations, especially about children. Who's going to do the disciplining? Those are things that you want to ask. Those are questions you want to cover. And even with the finances, right? How are we going to split the bills? How are we going to manage our funds? Some people have joint bank accounts, and some people are like, listen, your money, my money, my money. Different strokes for different folks. I never tell people what to do with their finances. You do have to really kind of think about what works best. What are your goals? Where are you trying to get to? And for some people, having a separate bank account, having your own private separate bank accounts, and then having joint savings and checkings works. Or, hey, we know at the first of the month we have to pay the mortgage, so just make sure whoever's managing the finances has the money. But these are conversations that you need to have, so you're not going into it blindsided, right? That will shut down a lot of the stress in relationships. Marriage can be stressful because it's an adjustment. So you have two people coming together from two different lifestyles, two different worlds, coming together and trying to join in. It's going to be an adjustment because you're trying to fit, right? So it's not always an easy, smooth flow. Sometimes it's like, let me see how I can get in there. And that's okay. But you can cut down on some of the stress if you have these conversations up front. If you need help having some of these conversations, reach out to us. We do relationship coaching. And so we want to encourage you to reach out to us if you need some help with that, with having these conversations, especially if you have never had someone to sit down and show you how to do it. We can help you with that. In a couple of Fridays from now, we are going to show you how to do it. I'll show y'all some of those questions and those cards I was talking about. So let us know if you need support. Thank you all for joining us for another Relationship Friday. This has been delicious. I loved your feedback. I loved your comments and your questions. And we'll be back next Friday for another Relationship Friday. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. We are trying to get our YouTube page. I think we have like 30 subscribers. We just got over there not too long ago. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, please help us out. We're trying to get our subscribers up. And follow us. If you haven't followed RDH Counseling and Consulting, do so please, so that you are up to date on what we are doing. And we got a lot of things. I'm saying it like rolling my head down, but we have a lot of things coming up. So I want to make sure that you all are informed. If you are looking for self-care support, we have our self-care, learning to becoming your own best friend. And a lot of times we are not taking care of ourselves. Right? We're putting everybody else's needs before our own. And so we are burned out. And so when it comes to relationships, we're burned out. How can I give you all of me and I'm burned out? So we have our self-care course. The link is in the description. Check that out. For those of y'all who are dealing with grief and loss, we provide a self-care growing through grief therapy group, and that's going on now. So we are accepting for that. Fellas, for those of y'all who are like, listen, I got a lot going on, but I don't have a safe space to connect to, we have our men's group. So for ladies, for the men in your lives that need support, send them to us. We connect with them. We are going to help them become their healthiest self. I have enjoyed working with the men. And ladies, for those of y'all who are, June 30th, we are going to be starting our Healthy Coping And I'm going to teach you how to engage in mindfulness practices. I'm going to teach you how to do the deep breathing, the meditation, the guided imagery. And that's just going to be your hour of relaxation, of letting your hair down, of really giving yourself what you need. So if you're interested in that, connect with us. We are excited to be able to offer that. That's going to be June 30th at 7 p.m. So once a week for 6 weeks. So connect with us. And we look forward to partnering with you and helping you become your healthiest self. I'll see you next Friday. Y'all be good. Bye.